Good evening and welcome to the broadcast of the Enid City Commission from the council chambers in the administration building on West Garriott.
I better get on, hadn't I? Roll call, we are all present except for Mike Stuber. Mike is absent. Our invocation this evening will be given by Paula Nightingale. And Rob Kemp, would you lead us in the flag salute after the invocation? Paula? Thank you for being here.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in this city the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Direct each of us, O Lord, in all our doings with your most gracious favor, and further us with your continual help, that in all our works begun, continued, and ended in you, we may glorify your holy name, and finally, by your mercy, obtain everlasting life. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, consider approval of minutes of the meeting of August the 4th, 2014.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ron, second by Rodney. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 5.1, present the pet available for adoption at the city animal shelter.
I don't see a pet tonight.
They show up at 6:30. I guess if they show up, we can introduce the pet, can't we?
Or you can get another bowl of dog chow on that taxpayer.
We'll play it by ear. Item 5.2, we have a proclamation.
We do want to remind everyone to visit our animal control house of opportunity to get a pet. Mayor, here's our proclamation for this evening. Commissioners and Mr. Benson, we have a proclamation honoring 4 kids. And Trish Mitchell, Trish, come on down if you will. Join the mayor. Thank you for being here. Whereas Garfield County is estimated to have nearly 2,000 individuals with disabilities living in the community, with 162 individuals receiving state-supported services and 272 on the waiting list to receive such services, and whereas the For Our Kids Foundation has been dedicated to providing support and opportunities to individuals with disabilities in the community since 2003. And whereas through vocational opportunities and recreational opportunities, community services, education, and advocacy, the For Our Kids Foundation has maintained an extraordinary record of providing support to children and adults in the city of Enid. Now therefore, Bill Shuey, the mayor of Enid, Oklahoma, on this important occasion, by virtue of the authority vested in the mayor, and on behalf of the city of Enid, does hereby declare September 5th, 2014 as the For Our Kids Foundation Walk for Kids Day. Congratulations, Trish. Thank you. You're welcome. Mr. Benson, and Commissioners, that's all of our proclamations.
Thank you, Steve.
Item 6, hearings. Item 6.1, conduct a public hearing regarding the submission of the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, known as CAPER, for the 2013 Community Development Block Grant Program year. Stephanie?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. It's that time of the year again where I am completing the CAPER, the annual report to submit to HUD. I'm waiting for doing the public hearing for public comments, and the comment period closes on August 22nd. So if we can just hear any comments. If you need a copy of the report, it's in the city clerk's office, and I also have it in my office as well.
Any questions? Thank you. Item 6.2, hear the appeal of Bob Berry concerning the subdivision design standards ordinance, section 12-6-6B for parcel 3E in the plat and the replat of part of lot 3, Bob's Farm, 8th edition. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioners, City Manager. The section comes from our subdivision regulations that simply requires lots to have their full frontage on a publicly dedicated street or a street that has received the legal status as such. So it's two parts in that sentence. In the first part, that front on a publicly street, I want to give you some visuals of that. Here along Garriott Road is you have all of the out parcels on Oakwood Mall have their full frontage on O&K Garriott. Across the street where you have Kentucky Fried Chicken, Kmart, all of the stores there. Here is the Hampton. There's Del Mar. They built a street to give access to the lot to the north there. This is the Homeland property. The next slide shows the Staples Shopping Center. It shows where we have Applebee's and Chili's. All of them have their full frontage onto Garriott Road. Here you see Walmart on the frontage road. You have all the out parcels there are on the frontage road as well as O&K Garriott. Lowe's has their frontage on Garriott. Aldi's does on Garriott and Mill Run. Country Inn and Suites, hotel under construction, has its full frontage onto Mill Run as well. The next piece of that same initial section, or have their frontage on a street that has received the legal status as such. Well, I have 3 examples of those for you. This is Spring Hill Suites Hotel, which is directly west of Walmart, and KL Drive is a dedicated private street that property fronts on. The next example I have for you, this is El Paseo, a recent subdivision. You can see that they have platted private streets that all of the lots front off of and have their full frontage. It's no different than the subdivision across the railroad tracks. These are public streets, but all of their lots face on it as well. And my last example of this is Rolling Oaks. They have a dedicated street and their lots front on it, no different than what we have here in Hunters Hills. These are public streets with lots fronting on those. So those are examples of what that section is and how the community has met that in the past. Tonight, we're talking about this property outlined in yellow. Originally, it was Lot 3 of Bob's Farms 8. It has been divided twice, once for Aldi's, and the second time was for Country Inn and Suites. What is left is this piece in yellow, and I'll show you on the next slide, is parcel 3A. Meets this section. It has its full frontage on the frontage road. The full width of the property does do that. The applicant is proposing that parcel 3E has only a small portion of its frontage on Mill Run. That's where the issue is. So one of your options tonight that we detailed in the background is you could simply approve it as presented, and you would be granting a variance to that particular requirement.
Just so I'm placing all this right, that narrow strip, I mean, that's the access road to Lowe's, right?
Yes, sir.
That's paved right now?
That's
Okay,
correct.
got it.
That's known as Lowe's Drive, yes. But on this plat, and the one that you're going to be considering in item .71 this evening, the applicant is included that as a part of this lot, or I should be saying parcel 3E.
Because that's not a city street, it's a private.
Right. So that's one option for you. When you get to 7.1, you could approve that, okay? The next option is, they're not variances, they're just simply alternative ways that the applicant could meet this standard of 1266. One is you, as the governing body, could determine that Lowe's Drive meets the legal status of a street. That's an option that you could do. Right now, in this drawing and what's in the plat, Lowe's Drive is being presented as an easement. I have no examples of where easements have received the legal status of streets.
Are you telling us, Chris, that street's going to be taken out of there? Is that
No,
the proposal?
no. What we're trying to address is if you made this a legal status, said, okay, that's a street, then parcel 3E would have its full frontage on that, and you would meet that 1266.
The hotel does have an entrance onto that street too. I mean, technically, they comply because they have the mill facing, but that new hotel is being built right there. The entrance is on the Knott Street, isn't it?
Are you talking about this, Commissioner?
Yes.
Yeah, their access is on Mill Run, and they also have access through their covenants.
Well, and it looks like their main entrance, you drive by, oh, logically, that's the entrance. That's on what is not a street, right?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
As you
can't comment.
drive by, when I went out to
Okay.
Lowe's this weekend, saw the construction with all that damn defus, that the obvious entrance is on,
Lowe's Drive.
yes,
To you. Okay,
okay.
that's fine. That may be, and it's a private street, and that's
No,
fine.
I'm just trying to place, that makes.
Gotcha. So this option is, what we're trying to do is comply with the ordinance that says you have to have your full frontage of your lot on a publicly dedicated street or a street that's received the legal status as such. If you determine this is a legal status as such, then this parcel would have its full frontage on it and it would comply. The next option, and it's still, well, we lost it.
We had an accident. Back.
Maybe I have it.
Probably got it in here, don't we?
Thank you, Dana. This is option 3, and let me go back to 2 just for a minute. This designating Lowe's Drive as an easement and granting it that legal status, MAPC considered that, and their recommendation to you is not to do that. Just needed you to know that. That's option
Yeah.
2. Option 3 is simply plat Lowe's Drive as a dedicated private street like you saw at KL for Spring Hill Suites, like you see in El Paseo, and like you see in Rolling Oaks. If this then becomes a platted dedicated street, then there's no question that parcel 3E has all of its full width fronting on that. And that is MAPC's recommendation to you. Can I answer any questions?
What's the
The
difference?
difference between 2 and
Yeah.
3.
Like, I understand what the legal distinction is, but what's the practical limitation on the property owner and the abutting property owners?
2 is an easement. 3 is it's platted, dedicated.
Sure, got it, but what's the practical? I mean,
What difference does it make?
yeah, I mean, I understand that it's an easement, and so the concrete will be there. In one of these scenarios, can somebody go rip up the concrete and say, I don't want this road anymore?
I can't answer that. The difference to answer the Commissioner Wilson's question is we know that platted dedicated street, private, have reached that legal status. I have no examples of where an easement does, but you may set that standard if you desire tonight.
So the difference is just semantics. It's just what you call it, whether you call it an easement or a street, because it's still a street. You still drive on it. It still has a name.
Well, let me maybe answer it this way.
Because to me, right now, that's all it appears to be is semantics.
Okay.
So you're going to have to,
Here's this.
I thought all along it was a street.
Yeah, I did
never
too.
realized it had any different status than every other street.
I've been driving on it an awful lot.
It's been referred to as Lowe's Drive, so it's a drive, and it's a private street. And I agree, it looks like a street.
Let me ask that.
Responsible for the maintenance in.
It's private.
that's what we're getting at, I think.
Yeah, either way, I mean, is it either 2 or 3, regardless, private maintenance,
Yes, it's
the city
private.
doesn't have any additional,
No,
So we don't have to fill that pothole.
no.
okay.
So we,
So the difference is
Why did MAPC pick 3?
to comply with the ordinance. 1266, it says you have to front on a street.
No, sure, but but it appears to me that the ordinance as written a public body can declare that it's the same legal status as a street.
Yes, you
and that
can.
option 2 accomplishes that.
Right.
And option 3 accomplishes that. So I'm just asking, why did MAPC pick 3 over 2?
yeah.
Because on 2, it still fronts, this lot, parcel 3E, still fronts on Mill Run. You've just declared this as,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was option 1. Maybe I
no,
missed
it's
something.
option 2.
Okay.
Then option 3, it's actually a dedicated street, just like you have,
What was option 1 again?
just to approve it as presented.
Okay.
Chris, the street that's north of Walmart, when you cross Garland, is that a dedicated street?
Yes, sir. It's called a frontage road.
Frontage road?
Yes,
So that's all
publicly dedicated.
And it's all in front of, north of Walmart?
Right.
Okay.
So the cleanest option is option 3? Is that what you're telling me?
That's what MAPC is recommending to you, yes.
Okay, and the developers
Because
requested,
there's precedence in the community
Sure.
that's reached that standard.
and the developer requested option 1.
Correct.
Got it. But 1, 2, or 3, same concrete, same responsibility, same not road. Do we get to name it if we pick option 3? I mean,
No, because it's private.
okay, that's too bad.
Two also sets the precedent that we're going to allow a major commercial development with 15 acres to have frontage of a street and a half wide. And that was MAPC's main thing. It's just cleaner to make it a whole street, because then the entire width of the lot is actually frontage versus just that little section on Mill Run Road. So it just seemed cleaner. It all accomplishes the same thing, but that's never been done in Enid option 2.
Sure. Well, and it's not, I mean, it's one of those, that as presented, it's not really what they're doing. What they're really doing is option 3, because no one would build a development of that size with this much of frontage on a road, because then nobody can get to your development. I mean, it's all, okay, realistically, there's a road there, but it's not really a road. So, okay, I get it.
Further questions? We do have someone signed up to talk on item 6.2.
We do, Mr. Mayor, Bob Berry.
Thank you. It's horribly even confusing to us about the differences, but let me tell you, on the platted street, one question that we had is who actually owns it? And in this case, we want the parcel 3 to be crystal clear that the parcel 3E owns the fee title of the real estate, because they depend on this. It's kind of like the chicken and the pig at breakfast. The chicken has an interest in it, the pig is totally committed. So with parcel 3E, they definitely want to know that they control this. Now, what that is they must then get the other 3 participants to pay their share of the maintenance. So they're assuming the headache of landlording, if you will, this street. The other thing that's important that wasn't brought up is that we already have one of these here. It's called the Aldi Drive. When we platted Lowe's, we put this street in. The city wanted a road that went all the way to Mill Run, which we did. When we did Aldi's, the city also wanted a north-south road so that traffic on the greater subdivision of Bob's Farm 8th Edition, which is Lowe's and all of this stuff, could keep all of their traffic off of the city street and to drag traffic in from the frontage road and not overload Mill Run. So, so when you get to the crux of it, we have 2 of these things. One that avoided this conversation, Aldi, because they simply had frontage. But the solution to making certain that the public had full access, we did this. And then additionally, we did another street on the south side of this for public service to the back sides of the buildings. The reason that we preferred the easement was merely as an accommodation to the people that want to build a hotel on 3E to give them a comfort zone as far as the ownership goes. We have covenants, and we've given copies of those to the planning department, that clearly spells out the maintenance and who's responsible. And unlike getting a ticket, these are horrid. You mess up, you're gone. They have the right of eminent domain over your whole property, not the street, but they can take your Aldi's or your hotel. And so these are the same kind of covenants that the mall has, for instance, on their outlots. Which brings me to the last point. At some point in time, the city is going to have to deal with Oakwood Mall, or you're going to lose 2 big tenants and a theater. The mall, if you'll remember the configuration of the deal that got kind of put together, you'll notice right now the mall only has one address, and that is of Oakwood Mall. So when you go look at the phone book, it's just one building. Okay, under the new configuration, all of those facilities will have their own address. And they want their address to be Garrett Road, and they're not changing the ring road. Okay, and so what's going to happen is that there has to be a vehicle, at least in my opinion, to where that the redeveloper of Oakwood Mall, which is not going to be us, has a vehicle by which they can put this stuff in. And so that's why we preferred the easement as opposed to the dedication. I think it is semantics, but I'm not enough of a real estate lawyer to tell you what it means. Nonetheless, all we want is assurance that the road that's built stays in its present condition, which is fabulous, and that the owner of the road is the owner of parcel 3E, which hopefully tonight will be a platted lot, and that the Aldi Drive and the Lowe's Drive will be guaranteed to be open to the public forever as a public access way, as is in our covenants and as we have labeled on our plat. And I can't tell you the difference between 2 and 3. It just looks like number 2 gives more weight towards the ownership of the fee title, and number 3 kind of makes you almost look like city property.
So your restrictive covenants will trump that. I mean, that, they pre-exist all this, and the restrictive covenants as for control of that road.
Funny you should bring that up. That's true, except that in the case of Country Inn and Suites, the city eliminated public hearings for site development plans. We had a site development plan approved by the MAPC for Country Inn and Suites, and then they let it go stale, so the city had to redo their site development plan. Well, when the city staff did it in I don't know what you call it, the quiet method of not having a public meeting, they changed all the utilities and the access to the service drive to Lot 3E. So we had to litigate against the developer of Country Inn and Suites, and we're still sorting out a water line. And so it is important to have some sort of a process. If you're developing these large parcels, which we're going to have well over 1 million square feet on this little corner, okay, there has to be some sort of transparent process where everybody knows what's going on. And that has been, that happened to us. I guess everything does.
Just hearing the peal.
But, so to answer you, we're a little bit concerned about what can happen if the city interjects into a private property and then changes the deal on everybody else that's out there. So that's why the 3E guy prefers the easement so that he absolutely has a fee control. But we're here, you know, and you're going to have to deal with this again on the mall, because I guarantee you they're not going to give you a right-of-way on a ring road, nor do I think you want a ring road. So I guess it's easement now or easement later. We just would like it decided, and so we could file the plat and we could get on with, I think you're going to like what we're going to do.
Mayor and Commissioners, I think the main difference legally is the city cannot enforce private covenants. The city can enforce its zoning codes and things like that, but it cannot enforce the private covenants. So if something happened later on, somebody wanted to rip up concrete, the covenants would have to be enforced in district court between two private property owners. It still could happen anyway. I mean, things can change, properties can change, but that's the main difference in these two.
Right.
So there's potentially...
Physically, there's no difference.
So is there
You
less
understand
headache
that
for us?
None of the streets at the mall are dedicated. So if McDonald's gets in a fight with another tenant out there, they have only the developer's covenants, which I've got to tell you, the private sector does a whole lot more stringent stuff than the public sector, and they don't have to go give notices and everything else. They can whack it out that afternoon. And so I'm not sure that, so in that vein, does the city, if they decide we need to have a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone on that, is the city going to post it? So the city is stepping into, it's almost a street is kind of how we take it, whereas number 2 is definitely not a street, but the ownership and the control and all of that is up to the private sector. Now, you understand that everything out there, though, has an underlying deal, which is the Lowe's covenants. Lowe's settles all bets. We close your store, we immediately foreclose, you're out of business. They just deal with the death penalty. And so everything has to go through that, and we understood that when we recruited Lowe's to come to Enid. Thank you.
Thank you.
So does platted private street, does that mean that's that it says private, does that mean it's the developer's responsibility or the city's responsibility?
It's the developer's responsibility. Yeah. And same so for the
So
easement.
the easement and so either way, the city doesn't have the maintenance or the...
No, the city will
or
not
the
have maintenance
ownership.
either way. No. The only way the city would have maintenance is if it were platted as a public street.
Which neither one of those are options.
No, they're not. I mean, they could be if the developer wanted to, but they're not. They're not set forth as an option in this case. Yeah. And I don't know what would be the lesser headache of the two, honestly.
I'm just sitting here
Yeah.
trying to think through
Yeah.
the possibilities and you know, okay, well, what's going to be less for the city to have to deal with later on? I mean, I appreciate that we would be setting a precedent, which I guess we always are kind of reluctant to do for legitimate reasons, but yeah, it's kind of...
Back up there, just on the slide. Can you go back, Dave, on the slide? Dana, I'm sorry, Dana. Looked right at you.
address would be off of Mill Run? A 3?
No, on 3, the address, if you followed the ordinances, 3, the address would be Lowe's Drive.
Option 1.
Oh, option
Option
1,
one.
yes, Mill Run.
Okay.
If you follow the ordinances.
The reason we did the Aldi drive was to have, some sort of a Garriott presence, much like, anybody else would want to do that. And so that's why the drive, even on our deal with Lowe's, we have 2 outlots in the front. Aldi's is on one. We're going to put something else on the other. And there had that drive in there was to keep it open, to make certain, particularly in the hospitality business, that they can, West Garriott is a known animal, and that's the whole reason to have it really easy to locate where you're going and multiple ways to get in it. We're even going to put in a directional arrow. I mean, I don't mean to sound hokey, but some way that's not advertisement. I understand having off-site signage, but a way to direct hospitality traffic back into the hotels. If you're on South Meridian, you'll see those kinds of arrows in landscaped and what have you. So the whole idea was to take the cachet of Garriott Road and put as much stuff out there that generates sales tax.
I don't think you answered David's question.
But
What will be the street address of the parcel?
Yeah, it would be on Mill Run if it's number 1.
yeah, if you do number
Did you
one,
say
it's on
that?
Mill Run, and that's not exactly. I know that's where they put Country Inn and Suites. We weren't really given that option, and nor did we really, I think it through. But the Garriott Road address is the address that hotels really prefer, because
Does Lowe's still get to come in and take that road away then?
take what road away?
That easement or that, if something
Lowe's
happens? to
Drive.
Lowe's Drive.
On option 1?
No, the Lowe's wants the drive more than anybody else.
I know what you mentioned a while ago, if they would leave. That would
If
cha-
they leave town,
Yeah.
no, because then it would revert back to the original grantor, which was us.
It would still,
I think, Rodney, the scenario he was talking about with the horrible conditions that could come from Lowe's, is that what you were asking about? I think it's that if somebody violates the restrictive covenants, one of the other properties does, then Lowe's has the ability to enforce those restrictive covenants in a big way.
but they couldn't this way still?
I don't know what all they could do, but
No, they can't. They cannot legislate. Lowe's covenants are extensive, and it details in to the T as to what they'll allow, what they won't allow, what businesses can't be there, how clean is, how mowed is, and so that if you like the way that Lowe's maintains their building, that is the minimum standard, and you can do a better job, but you cannot do anything less than that. And you can't have a packaged liquor store. You can't have a red light district. I mean, they have a million things, and some of those might surprise you that they don't want, like a cinema. So the Lowe's underlying covenants stay. And if Lowe's leaves, those covenants still stay.
Anything else?
So just so I'm clear, because I'm not at all, 2 and 3, the only difference is one is called an easement and one is called a platted private street. But they fall under the same ownership and the same maintenance and all of that.
Well,
And 2 and 3 both meet the standard for frontage property, for making that have the right frontage.
okay, let's go
that
back
right?
to 2. 2 is an easement. We have no idea what their covenants say. 3 would be a street, but it's a private street, so it's owned by that neighborhood. It could be owned by one lot, it could be owned by all the lots. It depends on how that is set up in the plat.
And 2 can be that way too, yes or no?
It could be, I just don't know. I just don't know the answer. But I mean, that's the basic difference is one's an easement, and one is dedicated in the plat. It's a little bit harder to get rid of a street in a plat than it is an easement. I mean, but either way, they're not for the city to enforce, so it's not gonna matter. If somebody went in there and tore up concrete, there's nothing the city can do about it, either way, whether it's a private street or whether it's an easement. So, but an easement would not satisfy the full frontage. The platted private street would.
To add to that, 2 is a street running across a lot. 3 is a street leading to a lot. Does that help?
No.
Okay.
It looks the same.
It does, it does. It all
You're
looks the
talking like
same when you
inches.
drive out there. It all looks the same.
This is really,
It
Are we
is-
overthinking
The
this?
question is,
Really
and the
dumb.
reason this is before this commission is because the MAPC doesn't have the authority to make these decisions. They can recommend a variance, but they don't have the authority to make this decision that you have before you today.
Let Andrea and,
to make a decision.
just a minute, and just a minute. Andrea, you two need to finish your conversation.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't get the difference. I'm not understanding it. Nobody is explaining it clearly enough for me to understand the difference. So if everybody else gets it, we can move on, but I am not getting it.
Physically, there is no difference. I mean, there is no difference. The concrete is already in place. From what I understand, it already meets the specs that a city street would. So there's no problem with the quality of the street. It really is just a question of what do you want to do? Because it's not going to matter
So this is.
either way.
This whole thing with the frontage is the issue because that's the ordinance we have.
Right, because the ordinance says that it
Right,
has
so
to have the
ordinance
frontage.
says that.
Right.
So this says, has the same legal status as a publicly dedicated street. Now, didn't the ordinance say that the frontage had to be on a publicly dedicated street?
No, or a street that has received the status as such.
It's just what that says.
Well, status of a street, though. Status of a
Right,
street,
which
not
that's-
status of public. So it doesn't have to be public. It could be a private street. The only examples we have, like Chris said, are El Paseo and what's the other?
But I'm saying if we
I mean, there's a
approve
couple.
option 2, then we're giving it that status.
Yes, you are.
So it's
Yes.
the same exact thing as number 3.
Yes, yes, and.
Then I move
Yes,
that we
yes,
approve
and.
option number 3.
We can't,
There you go.
there's no item on this.
Okay,
hearing.
then this is it, then what?
This is the hearing.
We got
You'll
two more
get it
items
again
tonight,
here in a
Tim.
minute.
Bob,
This is-
you have the floor, but stick to the subject. Don't drift off. Stick with the subject.
I don't think I have drifted, but I will stick to the subject. The city attorney made a statement that if it's an easement, therefore then it's not a street, so therefore then we couldn't have a Garrett Road address. So our point was to item number 2 is that you give up the ability to have a Garrett Road address. We did not understand it that way. It wasn't presented that way at the Planning Commission. The Garrett Road address is very important, and that's probably more important than the guy worried about the city wanting to come in and do whatever it is that Ms. Chisholm wants them to do. So if she still says that if we have a easement that acts as a city street but doesn't get to have the benefit of a Garrett Road Drive, then we would move to number 3. I don't believe she's correct, but we just want to end this. We want to
Okay.
end everything.
Let's go back to what I said.
Thank you.
An easement would not give him a Garrett address. However, he has another appeal for the address. That's another thing for you to consider. It's not part of 6.2, it's part of 6.3.
That's
It's
what
all
I can't figure, how are we going to?
It is all related, but they are separate issues, separate ordinances that you have to consider these under. So the first is it gonna be exactly the way it is now, with a tiny bit of frontage on Mill Run? Or is it gonna be an easement that is given the status of a street, and therefore that part of the ordinance is met, whereas the full frontage is on something that has been given the legal status of a street? Or are you going to require that that street be platted as a private street? So
And which one gives them a Garriott Road address?
Neither of them.
none of those give him a Garriott Road address. So you move to 6.3, which is the next hearing item, which is the address.
Okay, but
which
just
is
so we're clear,
related.
which one is necessary to allow
Exactly.
6.3 to give them a Garriott address? I get the Garriott thing, makes perfect sense.
None of them. None of them would allow a,
But none of them would prohibit either.
no. None would
That's
allow,
what I'm-
none would prohibit.
Great, okay, let's
So-
go on.
So
Please.
6.2 and 6.3, although they're related, two separate, completely separate questions.
Got it. One is a contingent for the other, we're good.
And option 3 was recommended by MAPC.
MAPC, yes.
Tell me again why.
Oh,
Because it complies with the ordinance.
Yes, it would comply with the
Cleaner.
ordinance.
But if we call that a street on option 2, it still complies with the ordinance.
It does, but MAPC doesn't have the authority to do that. Only this
Right, but
body
we
does. Yes, you can.
So either
Yes.
way, 2 and 3 is the same thing. At the end of the
6.2 is
day.
a hearing, as is 6.3. They're both appeals. The action doesn't come until item 7.
okay.
Item 6.3, hear the appeal of Bob Berry concerning, yes. Item 6.3, hear the appeal of Bob Berry concerning the numbering building ordinance for parcels 3A and 3E in the replat of part of Lot 3, Bob's Farm, 8th. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. The graphic that I prepared for tonight is to show you how the building number ordinance is applied. Between Garland and Oakwood, there are 15 blocks, roughly 350 feet per block. And so right here off of Garland is the 5300 block. Then as we move east, we have the 5200 block, and you see the address for Lowe's is 5201. And then east of it, still primarily on their lot, is the 5100 block. So basically, Lowe's consumes those 3 blocks. Then I'll skip this parcel, which we're talking about for just a minute, but go to Aldi's, and it is in the 5100 block, and is the reason that it was addressed 5001. This parcel, 3A, according to the ordinance, would be in the 5000 block, and address would be 5011. The parcel, if you approve option 2, would be 702 Mill Run, because it's lot fronts on Mill Run. I need to retract. Sorry. If you approve the plat as is presented, which is option 1, then it would be 702. If you approve option 2 or 3, the address would be 5015 Lowe's Drive, because the property fronts on that street. It does not front on Garriott.
So you're saying that Lowe's Drive as opposed to West Garriott?
Correct. And the
On two?
sorry. 2 and 3, it would be on Lowe's, because the lot would then front on Lowe's Drive. It does not front on Garriott. The applicant in yellow would like those addresses on Garriott Road.
I have a dumb question. Where does the post office figure into this?
Your ordinance is what determines what it is, and then that's what they give the post office.
I mean, I get the argument for wanting a Garriott Road address, and we've done far sillier things for developers to encourage the preferences of a chain, but it does at that point. I mean, it's a little weird. I guess I get it. I don't know. It's one of those, it is creating an artificial for the sake of a hotel kind of thing. What do we do with the hotel that's on the other side of Walmart?
Spring Hill.
Spring Hill.
Spring Hill Suite.
Do you know off the top of your head if that's a Garriott address or some artifice address?
It's KL Drive. But
Kale?
Yes.
KL.
KL
KL
Drive.
Drive, okay. So
it's-
Spring Hill on there, you Google Spring Hill, the address that's going to come up on Google Maps isn't Garriott.
That's correct.
Okay.
They did a dedicated private street, KL Drive.
Is the frontage street known as West O&K Garriott? Or
Yes,
the-
sir.
The one just south of O&K Garriott?
In addition to wanting them on Garriott, the applicant is also wanting them to have the 5100 block, and you can see these parcels are in the 5,000 block area, not the 5,100 block. So that's the difference too.
We don't have any addresses in the 5100 block.
Not on the south side. No, ma'am, you're correct. There is on the north side. And the applicant points to what's happening on the north side, and we agree there are two non-conforming addresses. Way out west, for example, is addressed in the 4,800, and it clearly is in the 5,000. And the old Wonder Bread is 5,100, and it's clearly in the 5,000. I cannot tell you how that occurred, but they are non-conforming.
But everybody knows where they are.
Well, I think the real question here is, I mean, maybe it's not a big issue. If I pull up, I'm just thinking from the perspective of whatever hotel chain or development chain wants to go there. You know, if I'm trying to find a hotel, I pull up the address, I just hit route on my phone, and it points me there no matter what silly address it has. But there is some benefit. If I'm driving through a new town, I know, okay, I'm looking for a hotel off Garriott. It's going to be a lot easier to find.
Although if it says Lowe's Drive and you see a big-ass blue Lowe's, you're going to think it's probably close.
You know, that's a good point, too.
There's that.
And that Lowe's is kind of hard to miss. And my phone will take me there no matter what it says, so.
This too is an appeal.
And what did MAPC recommend on this, or did they, Chris?
Recommended to follow the building numbering ordinance,
Which would be,
the numbers in blue. And then
well, there are two numbers in blue there, so.
well, yeah,
They're related to,
702 is if it's,
Depends on which way you
if
vote,
we
too.
go with the option one.
Okay.
And then the other two blue numbers are if we go with 2 or 3.
And
Correct.
the other hotel there is off Mill Run,
yes, sir.
even though it really isn't off Mill Run. I mean, it technically is off Mill Run, but, you know, you could fool me with the picture. Okay, got it.
item 7. Community development, item 7.1. Consider approval of the final replat of part of Lot 3, Bob's Farm, 8th edition.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chris?
Right here is where we're talking about. This is the plat. My next slide shows how water is being brought to the site. There's existing water right here that goes around it. The applicant is extending it into the middle of 3A and 3E to service 3E. The next slide shows how they are providing sanitary sewer, which is existing here. They're simply extending it north to cover both parcels. And my last slide, next to last slide, is the stormwater is going through these easements down and into the existing Lowe's detention pond. And this is the last slide. Here is the plat, and it gives you the addresses per the ordinance. Parcel 3A would be 5011 West Garriott. If you approve option 1, it would be 702 Mill Run. If you approve either 2 or 3, it would be 5015 Lowe's Drive, or you could give him the addresses that he's asking for as another option. Any questions?
So this is where we pick options.
This is where you make your
I move
vote.
that we approve option 2.
Second?
Motion was to approve which option, Tammy?
2.
2?
And let's make that more specific. Option 2 as related to Lowe's Drive, correct? Okay. Because the other issue, the numbering is also in here. So I just want to make
Okay,
sure
so-
we're going to piece it up.
Okay, so we're not addressing the addresses yet.
You can
That's a second.
address them both in the same motion if you would like to do that.
Do we need to talk about the addresses more? Does anybody have any real strong feelings about?
Well, I mean, the,
Let's do the addresses separately.
Decision.
I can see the advantage of having the address shown as Lowe's, because if you're looking for a hotel, you want it to be on a street that you can find easily. And I don't see any downside in saying that it is a Garriott address
I don't
for us.
have
I
a
mean,
preference.
it may be confusing
I
to
get
somebody,
either one. I get
maybe the
both.
mailman won't know what to do, but
I know, we try with these commercial developments, or at least we have in recent years, tried really hard
To be business friendly.
to do what the developers asked for the sake, and in part, I get it, even when it seems really silly, because these chains have such strange little particular requests. The developers requested what is option 1, though option 2, in terms of the first chunk, seems to accomplish it. And I guess the developers requested the Garriott addresses. I don't think any of these directly are going to hurt anybody, so if it's what the developers asked and it's going to help them get somebody in there, then let's just do what they want.
I will revise
I
my
don't care.
motion to approve option 2 with Garriott addresses. That's my motion. We
I'll
can vote on
second
it,
that
which-
motion.
Pass or not.
Which Garriott addresses? The ones that
The ones that
the developer has
requested.
requested?
Yeah, in the 5100 block.
I second it.
Okay.
We have a motion by Tammy, second by Ron. Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 5-1.
No.
Rodney's isn't showing up.
Four.
How do you say?
I vote
Did you vote no? Motion
red. I voted red.
4-2.
2.
Motion carries 4-2. Okay. Item 8, under administration, approve resolution to allow the submission of the consolidated annual performance and evaluation report for the 2013 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, program year. Stephanie?
Good evening again, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. This is a companion to the 6.1 public hearing. With your approval of the resolution, staff will submit the report to HUD.
Motion by Rodney,
Second.
second by Ron. Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.2, consider awarding bids and executing contracts for cleaning and mowing the city of Enid's approaches to the entrances of Enid.
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, Public Works sent out a bid request on July 24th to mow 5 different areas along the city of Enid. One of them was from Southgate Road all the way out to the city limits. The other one was from 30th all the way out to 78th Street. The next one was from Purdue all the way out to Carrier Road. The fourth one was from Garland all the way to Imo Road. And the last one was Southgate Road from Van Buren to Cleveland. As you can see, the following entities applied for the bid: Mowing Patterson, Don Jans, and Advanced Services won according to the bid process. Public Works recommendation is to approve the bids as submitted. Any
Mayor,
questions?
question if I may. Is this just going to be a one-time deal?
No, each of these bids are for one time per mowing. So if for some chance we haven't had any rain for a month and the grass doesn't grow, we don't let them go out there. If we need to mow every 2 weeks, then we tell them to go out there and mow every 2 weeks. So this bid is per time per mowing aspect of it.
And it begins when?
As soon as you approve or disapprove.
So in other words, there's not a great chance that we'll mow more than one more time this year?
Oh, we'll mow a lot more times. We'll be mowing until November probably.
Have we contracted out these mowing projects in the past?
We have, but we haven't had the public entity or interest as much. Sometimes we've just done the south part, sometimes we've done the east part. This is the first time that we've actually got all 5 entities being able to mow at this time. So this is a great advantage for us for the city.
Primary reason I want these bids, Commissioners, is so that the folks that would have to do this on city crews can be freed up to do those that you all keep reminding me need to be done, the drainage ditches, et cetera. These crews we've utilized them previously, and we extinguished that last year's budget item. We're bringing it back to you now. You approved a budgetary authority. We're now asking you to award the bids to execute that budget authority.
Could it be because we've had so much rain?
Well, clearly that's the case.
I'm tired of getting crappy emails about people's drainage ditches, so I make a motion that we approve this.
We have a motion by Tammy to approve,
Pictures.
Second.
second by Ben. Further discussion?
One question, I'm sorry. At study session, the issue of the fact that 3 of these places have the same exact address was asked, and I didn't quite clear the question. There's absolutely no way it's the same person submitting 3 bids to make one of them look better, but
No.
still higher than somewhere else.
Good
Does that
question.
make sense?
There are 3 individuals who have teamed to bid these as a partnership. They have submitted separate bids for separate geographical areas. Now, they use one mailing address because the 3 of them are partners. But there are 3 separate identities, 3 different people, 3 different sets of equipment.
Would you repeat the motion, please?
I just move that we approve these bids. And Ben seconded it.
Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0.
Stillwater uses goats, by the way.
I see. Oklahoma City does.
Oklahoma City does too.
Item 8.3. Consider an ordinance creating Enid Municipal Code 2014, Title 8, entitled Utilities, Chapter 7, entitled Natural Gas Franchise, granting to One Gas, Inc., Tulsa, Oklahoma, acting by and through its Oklahoma Natural Gas Company Division, and its successors in essence for a period of 25 years from approval and acceptance of this ordinance, a non-exclusive franchise and right to enter the public ways to install, operate, and maintain a distribution system within, along, across, over and under the public ways of the city of Enid, Oklahoma, for the transportation, distribution, and/or sale of gas to consumers and the public generally in the city, defining the words and phrases therein, providing for assignment, sale or lease of the franchise, providing for charging persons transporting gas through grantee's distribution system a fee on a calculated value of such transported gas, providing for use and repair of the public ways, providing for regulation of service, establishing depth of pipelines, establishing rights and duties in the movement and alteration of pipelines, providing for indemnification of the city of Enid, providing for grantees' rules and regulations, providing for inspection of grantees' records, requiring grantee to pay a franchise fee, establishing grantor's option to purchase, providing for conditions of the franchise, providing for construction of this ordinance upon the invalidity of any part thereof, providing for the submission of this ordinance to an election of the qualified voters of the city, providing for acceptance of this franchise by grantee and both an effective and an operative date thereof, providing for repealer, savings clause, severability, and codification. Andrea?
Mayor and Commissioners, this is the ONG franchise that has been negotiated over the past several months. The key features the key elements of this franchise are an increase from a 4% franchise fee that is currently paid to a 4.25% franchise fee beginning at the end of year 1 and lasting through the 25th year. It is a 25-year franchise. There is still a favored nations clause in the franchise which would automatically increase the city of Enid's franchise fee should ONG accept a franchise in Oklahoma at a greater rate than what the city now has. For example, we have 4% for the first year. If they accepted a 4.25 next month, we would immediately move to 4.25. And I take that bad example, not next month, but after it's accepted. If this is approved by the commission, it will go to an election of the city of Enid, and then at that time, if it's approved, it would have an effective date. It would become effective, but it wouldn't become operative until ONG accepted the franchise agreement.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by Tammy. I have a question. If it goes to a vote of the people and they vote no, what happens to the franchise fee?
The franchise fee is eliminated, and the city would go back to the gross receipts tax.
Which
To
is?
tax O&G, it's 2%. The city would also then charge O&G for each right-of-way crossing, each easement, everything that it would need then from the city. The franchise fee is in lieu of all those other charges that the city could charge, but doesn't because it has a franchise.
So we would go from 4 to 2,
Yes.
and that is roughly $400,000.
I don't recall
What
how
happens-
much that is, but
Right now, it's roughly 800,000 at 4%.
then it would be.
Cut it in half, it would reduce it to 400,000.
Yes. And the city would also lose income, if that were the case, the city would also lose income on transport customers.
Even though other towns would maybe mention that the other town got a better deal, you wouldn't be in that
No,
club,
it
don't you?
cuts you
No.
out.
No, you're completely out of.
Is the whole state in that deal, or is that just certain towns in our area?
The favored
Franchise.
nation, the state of Oklahoma is in there. All of the towns in the state of Oklahoma. If anyone, or if O&G accepts a franchise with any other city greater than what the city of Enid receives, then the city would
There,
automatically.
Commissioner, or Counselor, I think we're saying the same thing, but not stating it correctly. There are only 5 or 6 member cities in the favored nation category. It doesn't apply to every ONG customer in the state of Oklahoma.
Oh,
Correct.
there are maybe 5 or 6 that also have a favored nations clause, and so they kind of piggyback each other. But when you're looking at the favored nations clause and whether or not the city of Enid gets an increase, the city of Enid gets an increase even if the increase for another city came, and they're not a favored nations city. So we don't have to be, it doesn't have to be someone who also has a favored nations clause. The favored nations clause protects you in case someone else gets a bigger increase or gets a greater franchise fee. So,
If it goes down 2%, will it ever come back up on top of 25 years, or what?
not unless the city and ONG worked out a franchise.
I mean, it wouldn't
State
prevent,
law does not allow us to charge any more than 2%.
it wouldn't prevent a future franchise agreement being worked out. Or, I mean, there are any number of kind of weird scenarios that
Yes.
could come into play if this vote fails tonight or
Or fail.
the election fails in November. One of which, of course, ONG, correct me if I'm wrong, has the opportunity to present their own competing franchise agreement. Is that one of the options, Andrea?
They could. They would do it as an initiative petition and place it on the ballot.
I mean, yeah, it would be
Yes.
an initiative, but really it could be done, paid for, run by ONG.
Yes,
Which
absolutely.
presumably would not be quite as favorable terms to us, but.
I'm certain it would not be.
Your negotiations, the city's negotiations with Oklahoma Natural Gas is what we're voting on,
Yes. Yes.
that you worked out and
Yes. Now,
are recommending.
yeah. Commissioner Tim, did you understand the favored nations? Because I'm not certain you did. Okay, very good. I just
I
want to.
mean, I'm not thrilled with, clearly I have not been thrilled with how negotiations went, but I don't think we gain anything by denying this tonight. We have an agreement. It's the best we could do. I wish we could have done better. But I don't see a scenario in which the city of Enid receives any additional benefit by voting no tonight. I would love to. I would love to have negotiations gone better. I would love to have had all our bargaining chips on the table, but we didn't, so there we go.
Yeah, we didn't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, and that's our fault.
No, that's the way it's set up. We have a motion, but we have the person signed up.
Mayor, Cherokee Ballard, if you'd approach the podium, state your name and your address for the record.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, and Commissioners. My name is Cherokee Ballard, and my address is 401 North Harvey, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I am the Communications Manager for Oklahoma Natural Gas. And we appreciate this opportunity to be here this evening with you. The City and Oklahoma Natural Gas have worked diligently to reach an agreement on a new franchise for Oklahoma Natural Gas, and we really appreciate the professionalism and courtesy the City Manager, Benson, and his staff have shown us. We also appreciate the opportunity to have provided safe and reliable natural gas to the City of Enid for more than 80 years and this new franchise will allow us to continue that service into the foreseeable future. This agreement represents compromise on both our parts. The city considered the revenue it brings to provide key services to citizens, and since franchise fees are a pass-through to Oklahoma Natural Gas customers, we had to consider the financial impact not only on our residential customers, but our larger customers and companies in Enid who would realize the biggest impact. Currently, our customers pay a franchise fee of 4% to Oklahoma Natural Gas, which we remit to the city. And in the end, the city of Enid and Oklahoma Natural Gas, we believe that we have reached an agreement which calls for the franchise fee to increase to 4.25%. Again, we appreciate the negotiations and the time here this evening to express our gratitude.
One quick question for Andrea. One of the terms that in the initial draft I found especially onerous was the requirement for the city, if we chose to buy out in 25 years, to pay to reroute around. In the negotiations, we talked about, you remember the provision I'm talking about,
Yes,
the buyout
I do.
clause?
Yes.
Was that particular provision changed or stricken?
No, it was not. The last time you looked at the franchise agreement and you made comments, that change or any change to that was rejected by ONG.
So
They did make multiple changes, but not that change.
So as it's written, if the city decides to buy out in 25 years, we still have to pay them to route around the city of Enid.
If it became necessary to do so, yes. At that point, we would have to look at the, basically you look at the pipes in the ground and determine, can you cap this off? Or do you have to put in a new line and route it? So yes, it is possible. I don't know where all the pipes are, so I can't tell you that answer today, and I don't know where they'll be in 25 years. But that possibility is definitely there.
And that's the part of all this that gives me the biggest heartburn, because I hate hamstringing my replacement in 25 years. And that's maybe my 3-year-old kid, who knows? But
They sit every month.
I think one of my folks was sitting here over in Rodney's seat, but when that last time this came around, or one of them anyway. That is a big change from the franchise agreement we have in place today. We're not required to do that in the one that's about to expire. We're required to buy the assets, but not route them around.
There is a possibility that that could have been required anyway, because the Corporation Commission has to approve any sale. We don't know what they would do, honestly. We just don't know what they would do. We do know that the Corporation Commission protects ONG's former customers. So what become the City of Enid's customers are for the City of Enid to be concerned about. The remaining customers are what the Corporation Commission attempts to protect. And they want to make sure that if ONG is required to sell, then the remaining customers would not foot that bill. So the buyer then and its customers then foot the bill for the sale, is the way that the Corporation Commission looks at it. So it's possible, but it's not written into that agreement, so we don't know what the Corporation Commission would do.
And they only have 3 votes. Only requires 2 votes.
And ONG has much more influence with Corporation Commission than City of Enid does, so.
I personally agree with the negotiations that have occurred to adopt the ordinance. Would you read the motion again, please?
Motion was made to approve the ordinance.
Motion was by, and second by Tammy. Further discussion? Hearing none, cast your vote, please. Your vote was read. Motion carries 4-2. Yeah, it's awkward.
Commissioner Tim's no button isn't working today. Is it the no one?
It comes on here, but not up there.
Motion carries 4-2.
Ron, are you saying you wore out your no button?
He's broken it.
Item 8.4, consider approving a resolution authorizing the calling and holding of the election on November the 4th, 2014, for the purpose of submitting to the registered qualified electors, City of That's awkward. For the city, in the question of granting a franchise agreement with One Gas, Inc., Tulsa, Oklahoma, and providing for notice of said election.
This is the companion item to the resolution, and this actually takes it to a vote of the residents or the voters of the city of Enid. There's a resolution that calls the election and also a proclamation.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Tammy, second by Ron. Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Rodney, you vote yea or nay? Nay? Motion carries 5-1. Item 9, consent items.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Tammy to approve, second by Ben. Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0.
Did you vote yes that time? Your yes button works.
Item 10, we will recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item 11, all of the trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting are present except for Mike. Item 12, Enid Municipal Authority special meeting is in session. Item 12.1, consider a farm pasture lease agreement with Justin Allen DeHaas, Mena, Oklahoma, project number W-1304A.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager Benson. This item presents property owned in Ames, Oklahoma, purchased primarily for groundwater. And the purpose of this lease will be to use 155 acres for pasture land. So my recommendation is that we accept the lease agreement. The terms are $4,000 per year. The primary term is for 1 year, and the lease will remain in effect for 4 consecutive renewals unless terminated by either party.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ron,
Thank you.
Second.
we have a second by Tammy. Discussion.
Just the quarter we just,
Yes.
I thought we discussed maybe about selling the surface.
Well, this is not, this is the one, well, it's, yes, we retain the right, the option to sell the surface rights in the future. This is a 1-year lease.
Just,
Is that consistent with properties that are leased in the area?
And it's actually a higher price. It's about $26 an acre for pasture grazing. Commissioner Tim could speak to that price, but I think it's very attractive. Now, this, unless the council deems otherwise and we decide to sell it, this is a 4-year lease. It would run consecutively 4 years.
you can break it out yearly.
I think there are, yes, it can be terminated by either party.
I just don't want to lose our chance to sell it if we need to.
Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0.
Your yes light, I noticed, does vote.
Yeah, it does, yeah. I wore that red one.
He doesn't use it as often, so.
OG&E franchise is coming up. Fix your light.
The claims are coming up.
Item 12.2, approval of claims in the amount of $330,074.43.
Move to approve.
Motion by Ben,
Sure.
second by
I'll
Tammy.
second. Sure.
Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. We will now adjourn to convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. All trustees of the Enid Economic Development Authority special meeting are present except for Mike Stuber. Item 15, the Enid Economic Development Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 15.1, approval of claims in the amount of $1,044.93.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Rodney,
Second?
second by Ron. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. We will now adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Under public discussion, there are none. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ben, a second by Ron. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned.
Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission meeting. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at enid.org.